Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 100 Words or Less, the podcast. I'm your host, Ray Harkins, and we're talking about episode number 18 right here. Almost to 20, almost to 25. There will be something special in the 25th episode. That's a nice tease, right? Anyways, I sound a little different because I'm not recording with a microphone. I'm just talking straight into my computer because I'm on vacation. And I'm hanging out in my hotel room in Hawaii, looking at the beach, going on awesome hikes, fun stuff. And please forgive me if there's a fire alarm that goes off in the background, because for some reason my hotel is doing that right now. So I've tried to record this like 10 different times, and it keeps going off. And so I said, screw it. I'm just going to keep going through it. And you guys will have to deal with it. Anyways, let's get some business out of the way. We are part of the Punk News Podcast Network. Go to punknews.org and you can visit all of the awesome reviews, awesome news articles, and basically keep abreast with everything that is happening within our culture. And I'm proud to be a part of that. And let's see, our guest today, Mr. Alex Erian from Despised Icon and more recently Obey the Brave, who just recently signed with Epitaph Records. And I've known the guy for a while, so I'm excited to speak to him. More about him in a moment. And let's see. Something I've been thinking about a lot recently. I listened to an interview with Matt Pinfield, who was the host of an MTV show called 120 Minutes. And for those of you that don't know, we're talking about, I think, early 90s is when this show was the most popular. It was a late night video program for about, hour, 2 hours sometimes, where they showed music videos that were either from independent artists or stuff that MTV couldn't generally play during the day or evenings. And this is when MTV was playing music videos more on the regular. So I listened to an interview with him and I kind of started to reminisce about that show. And I realized it was extremely formative in my musical upbringing. I distinctly remember watching Rage Against the Machine on there. I remember watching Dinosaur Jr. and just kind of finding out about these bands who were bubbling underneath the mainstream, but really gravitating towards them. But more importantly, Rage Against the Machine just really blew my mind and opened my eyes to the fact that not everything is all right in the world. What I had experienced prior to that was obviously everything's cool and there's issues. There's obviously wars I was aware of and things that were happening in the world. But Rage Against the Machine shone a light on the fact that people didn't want to take it anymore, and they could obviously take some sort of control into their own hands. And it was really eye-opening for me because, like I said, it introduced me to the world of politics. It introduced me to a lot of different cultural movements within not only our society, but our subgenre of music. And I was kind of reflecting, what is that discovery process like for kids now? Because obviously you hear a lot of people who are around my age talking about how bands don't stand for anything anymore. They've got nothing to say, whatever. I don't completely agree with that statement, but I can understand and sympathize where, using something like the Warped Tour as an example, out of the 70 or so bands that are playing there, there's not many that have politically tinged messages or even are just an overt political band. Like I can think of only one band recently, such as Anti-Flag or Rise Against. And Rise Against is a completely huge mainstream rock act at this point. And so that could maybe be a direct comparison, Rage Against the Machine versus Rise Against today. I don't know. It's definitely one of those things where I would love to know where people kind of discover that side of the world and realize, oh, okay, everything isn't all right. And maybe it's just really easy to discover that now, so bands don't feel the need to kind of put that in front of kids. And I don't know. It's just an interesting dichotomy. And like I said, it got me thinking when I had my revelatory moment of like, oh, wow, people are getting screwed over in some way, shape, or form, and they don't have to take it anymore. So anyways, that's that. I also wanted to mention the passing of Tony Sly from No Use for a Name. I was really impressed with the amount of outpour from people, either just I saw on my own social networks or obviously on a lot of the news sites around there. I really didn't get a sense of how much No Use for a Name impacted a lot of people. It was really formative in my musical upbringing, because you had your bands like NoFX, Lagwagon, No Use for a Name. Like, they were all synonymous, and they all kind of obviously came up around the same time. And I distinctly remember No Use for a Name was kind of the most talented of the bunch, if that made any sense, where their recordings always sounded really professional, and they just always seemed to have a little bit more, I don't know, harder edge to it, even though they, fell in the whole Fat Records camp and, were akin to many of those type of bands. But yeah, Tony Sly was very young. I mean, early 40s, and passed away in his sleep from what I've read. And so it's a very sad day when that happens, because obviously he was a voice for many people and introduced them to many amazing things, not only musically, but politically. And the band was definitely awesome. And yeah, sad to hear that Tony will no longer be with us. I say Tony like I know him. I don't know him at all, but I feel like I obviously have some sort of window into his life through his music. And it was just great to see everybody really, really be impacted by that, and obviously not just kind of let that go quietly in the news stream, so to speak. Anyways, visit our website, 100wordspodcast.com. You can find recommendations, stream the show. I really recommend that you do that. Second thing, rate our show on iTunes. It'll make us look cool in some way, shape, or form. And so, yeah, now I want to talk about Alex from Despised Icon and Obey the Brave. I've known him for a while, and I feel like he, and especially a lot of the people that view the sort of, I don't know, Jim Short hardcore / metal culture with a very, a very negative view. Alex is completely the opposite of that. Granted, he definitely lived within that culture when Despised Icon was touring regularly, and they kind of predated bands like Amir and all that type of stuff. But in any event, Alex was always super, super cool to me, and I just thought he would be a very interesting guest. We spoke on Skype, and towards the end of the conversation, it gets a little internet staticky, and I apologize for that, but I didn't want to derail the conversation and try to record it again. So anyways, in any event, here's a conversation I had with Alex, and hope you enjoy. So yeah, I usually like to start these things off with just kind of, my own first personal experience with either, yourself or your band. And I just remember, early in my years of working at Century Media, I was, like we were talking about our mutual friend, Roy Culver, he was working alongside me, and, he was like, "Hey, Ray, check this band out. I really think they've got something cool going on." And it was so weird. I remember listening to it and just like, because this is, it was early 2000s, so it was like the word metalcore was still in existence and still like meant something to kids. And so like hearing it was so interesting because it had a lot of those, same elements that bands of that nature had, bands like Unearthed, Red Chord, that type of stuff. But then you obviously had a little different approach where, you were adding a lot more influences from, death metal and all that type of stuff. And so I just remember listening to it and being like, what the fuck are these guys doing? Like, I couldn't wrap my head around it. And it was, and then shortly, I think it was maybe like, whatever, a year or two later, like we actually met each other. And it was one of those things where, I don't know, you get a certain perception of how a person might be just either by, the band they're in or promo photos or whatever. And for whatever reason, I thought you'd be like a really hard dude. Like, I don't know why, but I just, that was just the perception. And then when I met you, I was just like, oh no, Alex is just, he's just a goofball like the rest of us. do people
are you taping this right now, or
yeah, if that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've a lot of people actually told me the same thing. They see me in like a music video or on stage or something. They think I'm like a hard ass or whatever, but I'm just like a regular dude, man. Just I don't know. I guess this music thing is my way to vent all my frustrations and apprehensions or hatred or whatever is going on in my head that's going wrong or whatever. That's just like a positive outlet to let it all out. So
yeah, no,
what you see on stage isn't me in real life. I'm actually pretty chill.
No, for sure. I mean, and you usually find that like once you kind of get to know. I mean, because I had the same thing. I mean, I never. Taken was never like obviously a hard band from that perspective, but people would be like, sometimes they'd be afraid to come up to me after the show and be like, "Hey, are you okay?" Like, and it's totally funny because that's, no matter how long you've been involved with this, like you still set up some perceptions of what a person's going to be like based on either, what they do in the band or, how they look in promo photos or whatever. But that's funny. I'm sure other people, like you said, have come up to you and been like, "Yo, dude, I thought you were going to be like hard as nails and carry around brass knuckles and all this."
Yeah, well, right now, just so you know,
yeah,
I'm holding Taken and they slept and Taken between two unseens. I still own both, just so you know.
Well, I appreciate that. We definitely we loved the East Coast of Canada and we played there quite often.
I actually own CDs. I don't know, man. Like what struck me about you and Roy and Stacy, all that, you guys were just really chill dudes. Like I remember back in the day, not even hitting up Century Media or Abacus just because I thought, that it was a long shot. I didn't even, it was just too big or whatever. And like back then, like you said, deathcore wasn't really around or didn't even exist to a certain extent. So I don't know. I think Stacy reached out to me super casual, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. And then I don't know. I guess things just picked up that way.
Yeah.
But you did mention the Red Chord earlier. Definitely got a lot of respect for Guy and the boys. Fused Together in Revolving Doors. That was one of the first, if not the first, deathcore record that I purchased. If you want to call it that. It is a mixture of metalcore and death metal in my book, and definitely got to give him a lot of definitely got to give that band a lot of credit for that. And but yeah, it was just weird at the time. I just remember doing all these death metal tours. We'd be on the road with Morbid Angel or Deicide or Suffocation or Aborted or like a bunch of my favorite bands. And this was before deathcore. Like there were no bands like Despised Icon to actually, share the stage with. Whitechapel wasn't around. Job for a Cowboy or Suicide Silence hadn't even done their first tour at the time. Same for Whitechapel and Carnifex. And I don't know. It was just really awkward. I just remember it being really awkward, just getting a lot of hate from the metal fans. And then once this other scene actually developed, it started getting interesting for us.
No, that was actually, I was going to bring that up a little bit later, but it's perfect to talk about right now because you're going to get, because obviously the metal crowd, it's a very, very distinct crowd, and they obviously, they really focus on their tradition. So it's like,
yeah, conservative, definitely.
Totally. And so when when a bunch of, short-haired kids jumping around on stage, like looking like a hardcore band, but playing, very extreme music, they're going to be like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is terrible. And like, I'm sure like awkward is actually probably the best way to describe it.
It's the polite way to describe it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So like, when you guys were doing that, like, was it just one of those things where it's like you all kind of just like collectively talked as a band, and you were just like, all right, well, we know that this tour could suck for us as far as like, a certain segment of the crowd is going to give us a really, really bad reaction, but we know that some of the crowd will get what we're doing.
I mean, yeah, exactly. That was our mindset at the time, but we just couldn't help ourselves. We were getting these opportunities to tour with these bands, and here we are, Suffocation. I love Effigy, I love Pierce from Within, and all of a sudden you get this offered a tour with Cryptopsy. One of the first death metal bands I listened to back when None So Vile actually came out and all that, and the same goes for a bunch of bands like that, and we just couldn't say no, man. I grew up listening to that shit, and like that's that's a big part of how I got into music in the first place. And obviously that was more of like me in the 90s, and then when the late 90s early 2000s came about, that's when I started listening to bands like Madball or Biohazard or even more like traditional hardcore like Bane or whatever, like I don't know, just sort of love everything and mixed it all up.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that actually segues perfectly into because were you boys born and raised in Montreal?
Well, Montreal mostly, or around Montreal, but yes, we are all French Canadians from Montreal.
Got it. And you yourself, were you yourself born in Montreal, or were you like in one of the suburbs or surrounding cities?
No, I was born in Montreal, and I think some of us were born in Longueuil, which is south shore of Montreal, right outside of the island. But I'd say we're mostly based in Montreal for the most part. Well, the early days, that core lineup, and then
right.
Later towards the end, we had Al Glassman, who is from Massachusetts, who then brought in Max, who became our bass player, who's also from Massachusetts. So we had two Mass dudes starting, I don't know, 2007 or so. And then Al switched over the Job for a Cowboy. And then, a couple of years later, we got Tony to fill in for Eric for our last year of touring. And Tony's from Mass as well. And he later joined Job for a Cowboy as well. And now we got Max, who's in Black Dahlia Murder. So all the American dudes that played in Despised are actually in fucking sweet death metal bands right now. So I'm pretty happy for them.
Yeah, no, it's cool. They can transition into something else beyond, just kind of sitting there and twiddling their thumbs.
Well, I mean, to each his own. Like the Quebec chapter of Despised Icon, they're more into they're somewhere else now. They all have kids. Yannick, our first guitar player, I think he's on his fourth kid now coming up. He's very productive.
Yeah.
Eric just had twin daughters like recently. Grind had a daughter. Seb had a daughter as well. Everybody's just in that mindset right now. They got great jobs. I'm super proud of them, and sure. I guess I tried to go that route. I actually got a good marketing job in an office, and not just somewhat like you were doing. Everything related to bands.
Mm-hmm.
And was doing that for like a year and a half or so, and I just missed being on the road and missed touring and writing records and all that good stuff just so much that I just had to get back into the grind and start a new band.
Yeah, no, that it's definitely hard because certain people, like you said, they move on to different chapters in their life, and they're like right now, me myself, if you were to be like, hey Ray, go on tour for 5 weeks in the States in a van, I'd be like, fuck you. That sounds terrible. That doesn't sound entertaining, engaging. Like I wouldn't be interested in that.
Yeah.
But it's like like you said, to each his own. And there are some people where it's like like you said, you tried. You're like, all right, here's a job. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna stick around. I'll see how this goes for me. And then you're like, no, that isn't for me. Whereas some people, they wouldn't even try it. Like they wouldn't even try to get a job or anything. They would just, join some terrible band and just eke by a living for like years and years and years. And just like, at the end of the day, they might be unsatisfied because they wouldn't even have anything to like, they wouldn't even try that aspect of life,
Yeah.
So it's cool that you tried that.
Oh, I tried it and I'm thankful for it. I'd say the way I go about things is more structured now, and definitely have that work ethic going on. And you want something real bad, you got to work for it. And so that's what I learned. Well, I mean, I've learned that a while back, but how to do it in the right way, I guess. This past year or two really helped me out in regards to that. And
totally.
I don't know, just trying out different things, man. Definitely. School of life. Let's sum it up to that. School of life.
Yeah. No, that's why I love, once I turned 30, I felt so much more comfortable in my own skin and then in my knowledge, and just kind of, like you said, everything that you've done up to that point, you've learned from, or hopefully you've learned from.
Yeah.
And then that way it's like, like yourself, when you're starting a new band, you're just like, all right, I don't have to do, 17 terrible US tours and make negative $70 each tour. Like, we can do this smartly, better, whatever you'd like to call it. It's like, I've learned from what mistakes I made when I was, 22 years old and having no idea what a tour really was. But so, take me back to like, when you were, when you were born in Montreal, and I always found Montreal so damn interesting. And I'm sure a lot of Americans say that because obviously the fact that most people that are born in Montreal are bilingual by default. So you speak English and French, and do you speak anything else?
No, English and French, but the fact that I know both languages, whenever I see something written in Spanish, I can decipher maybe a quarter of what's going on or what's being said. So I guess that's a tool. There's all Latin roots, I guess, but no, I just speak French and English.
Yeah, and I think that's so interesting in and of itself because obviously Americans don't have that. Like we try to be. Well, we try to be bilingual.
English is the universal language, man. Like whether you just have to speak it.
No, it's true. But so when you, being raised in Montreal, like, how was your, how's your home life growing up? Like, were your, what did your parents do, and kind of, do you have brothers and sisters, and take me through that.
I am an only child. I guess. Dude, if you want to be real sentimental and shit.
Oh, I do. I love being sentimental.
When my mother was given birth, both she and I almost died. It took like 30 or 40 hours for me to actually come out. Wow. So it was a close call. And after that happened, they sort of decided to, all right, let's just have one kid. So
they're like
that's where I'm coming from.
Well, basically, once they had you and it was a 30 to 40 hour experience, they were like, yeah, let's just stick with one kid.
Yeah, definitely.
And so you're, what did your parents do for a living? And, how was, well, I guess that's one part of the question. And then the second part of the question is like, did you enjoy being an only child?
Well, my dad worked at IBM. He was he's an engineer. He was traveling a lot and providing. Mm-hmm. And my mom was all over the place. She started out in hospitals and then decided took a break once I was born, and then decided right after that hey, I'm going to try something completely different. I'm going to do graphic design now. So she went back to school with a kid and studied that for a few years, then worked in that field for 10 years. And then, you know what? I miss hospitals. And then she went back to school, studied again in her 40s, and then went back to the hospital. So,
wow.
Both parents are inspirational in a sense that, they're hard workers and they want something, and, they work hard to get it. And that just inspired me to do the same, basically.
Oh, that's really cool that you were able to see that sort of entrepreneurship of like, hey, if you want to, like you said, if you want to get something yourself, you just kind of got to go out there and do that.
Oh yeah, go get it. Just don't take no for an answer, and just keep knocking on a bunch of doors until something happens.
Right, that's awesome. And so, when did you kind of discover independent music? I mean, you mentioned, like you said, you kind of got into Cryptopsy because Montreal is a huge metal scene.
Yeah.
So was that kind of your introduction when you were in like junior high or high school?
Independent music. Well, for starters, just sorting through my dad's old vinyl collection when I was younger, when I was, starting to get into my teens. I guess that's how I discovered Black Sabbath or Led Zeppelin or Jimi Hendrix or even Bob Marley. All those artists that I still to this day listen to and respect and love. So definitely have to credit my dad for that. But as far as like heavier music or independent music or the whole underground is concerned, I guess 1993, I was in high school. First or second year of high school, and I discovered Pantera, and I was like, "Whoa, this is heavy," And then you look at the Cowboys from Hell cover, or the Vulgar Display of Power cover, and then there's like that parental advisory little like sticker on there, and you're like, "Oh man, my parents can't know that I'm listening to this right now. It's so heavy.
Sure.
They say fuck all the time. Like, it's awesome. And so, I don't know, I just started listening to a lot of Pantera, Sepultura, slowly got, Fear Factory, whatever, just started getting into that whole, heavy side of things. I had friends starting to play guitar, bass, all that. So I was like, hey, I want to play music. I want to be in a band. And nobody else played drums. So, hey, let's play drums. And I was too broke at the time to actually afford a drum set. So my godfather, before he passed away, he saw how motivated and passionate I was about this. So he gave me a big present. He bought me a drum. And I'm still to this date, I'm very thankful for that because, I guess everything I'm doing right now sort of derived from that, from me actually having the opportunity to play music, to own an instrument and all that. And he bought me Green Day's Dookie on cassette as well. And, here I am talking about all this metal stuff, but I was a big punk rock fan as well, whether it's, the hits at the time were Smash by Offspring and Dookie by Green Day, but I was also into like NoFX, Punk and Drublick, Pennywise, what was it called? Pennywise Unknown Road.
Oh yeah.
Rancid. What was that record called? Let's Go.
Yeah, Let's Go or Out Come the Wolves.
So yeah. So start slowly getting into both scenes, the punk rock scene, the heavy metal scene, or thrash metal, or whatever you want to call it, and just start playing music with my friends. Start doing these amateur shows in high school. I started taking drum lessons, so I joined the jazz band, the big band. Played all sorts of types of music. I've never considered myself like a full metalhead. I'm more like of a musician or a music lover in general. So
yeah,
I like to be a little all over the place. I've gotten a lot of shit for that in the past, but who cares, man? Music's awesome. Why be a Nazi about it?
Right. No, you definitely. It's funny because you always have struck me as that because, yeah, and I do think that people such as yourself, where it's just like you're not only getting into metal, but you're also experimenting with punk, and you're kind of you're finding what you like. I mean, of course, when you're a teenager, you really dive into one music scene, and you're like that's who you are for that 6 months to a year. But then you don't forget about what you listened to before, where it's like, yeah, even though you might be listening to, Blink-182, you can still listen to Cryptopsy and be like, oh, that's incredible. Like, I still love that.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I think
not everyone gets it, but
yeah,
to each his own, like we said earlier.
Yeah. But I think it really informs you, like you said, not only as a musician, where it's like you're not just focusing on one style of music, you can bring in influences from all these different places. And because I honestly had no idea that drums were kind of your route of choice as far as an instrument was concerned. So what was the first band you played in, like that you officially started to maybe do like your first live show with?
Well, my first, let's say somewhat professional band that I joined was called Hidden Pride. It was a brutal death metal band.
Okay.
That actually reunited recently and played a show, and it had been, I don't know, over 10 years that they hadn't played and everything. So I went out and saw him, and my friend is playing drums with him, and it was awesome. Brought back memories. But yeah.
Nice.
So I joined this band called Hidden Pride in 1997. I was 17 at the time. I don't know. I used to go and watch that because I wasn't the original drummer then, and I used to go and watch them live and everything. And then I was at some party and I saw the guitar player and I was starstruck. I was like, dude, when are you? You're a little drunk and you're like, hey man, when are you playing your next show? And there's like, we can't play a next show. We don't have a drummer. So hey, I play drums. So then
that's amazing. You're like, hey, I'll volunteer.
So like a few days later, they came over to my grandmother's place because my grandmother lived upstairs from my place, and my drums were at her place. And it's like big metalhead. I was 17. He was like 26 or 27. Long hair, everything. Sees my grandmother. Hey, lady, blah blah blah. Where's Alex? And then just started jamming, worked out great, and that was my first shot of actually playing shows outside of Montreal, playing in Quebec, in Ontario, here and there.
Yeah.
And that lasted about a year or so, and then I don't know, the band sort of fell apart, unfortunately. And like as soon as that happened, a day later, my good friend Stephen Henry, which I didn't know at the time, got my phone number from someone and was like, "Hey, my band Neuraxis is looking for a drummer." I was like, "Yo, I'm gonna try out." And a week later, went to their jam space, tried out, joined Neuraxis, who later put out stuff on Willowtip Records, on E-Rake, on Prosthetic,
Yep.
and that was my first. My shot at touring outside of Canada, so Canadian tours. Did my first U.S. tour in year 2000. Did my first European tour in 2003. So that's when things started getting a little more serious for me, and that's when I was like, man, I'm hooked. I don't want to do anything else. I still went to school. I went to university and all that, and every day I'd be in class and I just had music in the back of my mind, and I'd just cut class all the time to go smoke weed and play drums and just, but I don't know, like, I don't know, man.
What were you,
good memories.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that sounds awesome, especially once you do find that world and you're like, oh yeah, like once you've been bitten by the bug where it's like you want to tour, you want to create, it's like, oh, nothing can stop you. So what were you, first of all, what were you studying in university? And then second of all, there's always the discussion that you have to have with your parents where it's like, okay, guys, I'm not going to either, get a real job or whatever, where it's like, I'm going to tour, I'm going to pursue music. And that conversation I know can be difficult. So, two-part question.
Well, I have a bachelor's in communications. I graduated, I can't even remember when. Like, the way it came about is, just to finish off what I was saying, like, I was doing Neuraxis, and then started doing Despised Icon with my friends, and then joined this other band on One Day Savior, which were called In Dying Days. They were sort of like Strong Arm back in the day. I don't know if you remember that band.
Dude, that.
I was doing all of that. I was playing in three various bands, three different bands, playing drums, and then I got tendonitis in my elbow, had to quit drums and everything all together. And then that's about when I graduated from university, and I don't know, I just really wanted to keep on playing music. I couldn't use my arms, so I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna, sorry for my bad language. Anyways, I was just fine. I'm just gonna, I want to play music, I want to be in a band. So I started screaming, and Mary, the singer in Despised at the time, wasn't digging our new sound, our passage from the first record, which was more traditional brutal death metal, into like the second record, which was more deathcore, and she was getting married and all that. So she stepped out. I took her spot, graduated around then started talking to you and Roy and Stacy and all that, signed to Century Media. And as soon as I graduated from university, a couple of months later, I just went on tour. So never really did anything with that piece of paper that I got from school. But I don't know, I definitely got to apply some of that knowledge to Despised, or to Obey to Brave, my new band right now, whether it's self-promotion or public relations or marketing or self-management or whatever you want to call it. It definitely helped.
Right. So that sounds like the timing kind of worked out to your advantage, where you didn't have to have that really, because, kids have to have that tough conversation where it's like, hey, I'm not going to go to college, mom and dad. I'm going to do this. And they're like, no, you're not. That's a terrible idea. So, like, were your parents pretty supportive of your musical journey?
My parents are cool. They saw how bad I wanted it. They saw how much I just loved either listening to my cassettes or CDs, or just going out to shows, local shows, big shows, small shows, all the time. When you actually start getting a little older, and I think at the time I was 23 when I graduated, and all that, and then they were like, well, what are you going to do with your life now and everything? And then all of a sudden I got these touring opportunities, and Century Media being a worldwide label and everything, that sort of impressed them. And like, wow, you're going to LA and San Diego and New York next month. That's pretty awesome. So I just, they were like, wow, well, seems like you have something on your mind. Just go all the way and see where it leads you. So they've always been really supportive as far as me being a musician is concerned, or just me in general. They support me no matter what. So I feel very fortunate to have parents like that, and that actually come out to my shows once in a while. Not every show, granted, because it's not really their cup of tea, but once in a while they'll pop up and they'll be happy, and they'll wear like a black shirt or something and take pictures and be like, your orchestra was awesome.
That's so incredible. That's really cool that they were supportive, because I had a similar experience to you, where it's like, even though I did have to have a difficult conversation with my parents as far as, hey, I'm going to drop out of school because I want to do these things, but I did have the job at Century Media in order to kind of alleviate their fears that, like, hey, I'm not going to be just like some dropout, like loser kid who's like, oh yeah, I'm going to be a rock star. It's like, no, like, I'm responsible, but I need to pursue this,
Yeah, and it's not like I went into that mindset that I want to be a rock star or anything. It's just like, I don't know, man. I just really love doing this shit. Here I am, 31, and starting all over again with my new band, and I couldn't be happier. So,
right.
But yeah. There comes a time when they did start to question certain things, but at some point you're like, hey, Dad, I just toured 35 countries, and he's like, yeah, you're right. Just do your thing.
That's amazing. You're like, yeah, okay, I get it. I understand. So with the, kind of with Despised Icon, what I also found so interesting and kind of, what set you guys apart from what, other bands of that nature were doing, was honestly your fashion sense and the way that the band presented itself. Because, you guys definitely had, it wasn't a deliberate image where you're like, all right, everybody wear matching clothes and we need to have synchronized headbangs or anything like that. But,
yeah,
you definitely had the whole, for lack of a better term, like, urban, streetwear style. But obviously you were playing this style of music. And so I found it so interesting because people either loved it and embraced it, or they hated it, or they were like, oh yeah. And so, did you notice that as you were kind of doing that? You're like, oh wow, people have a problem that I'm wearing, flat billed hats. Like, did you notice that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess when we started out, like, I wasn't used to all this hate and everything, and it's like a little overwhelmed. I was like, man, I'm just playing music, man. What's the matter with you guys? If you don't like it, good. But like this whole like lamb goat van flip community was just like,
yeah, totally. You were like, I wasn't used to this. I'm just me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. Like, I really, I guess I'm thankful for all those negative comments now, because it just really made me stronger and more confident, and I guess bottom line is, whether somebody likes it or not, that's not going to change anything with what my life plan is. And I'm not trying to be a pleaser or anything. I'm just trying to do me, whether people like it or not. And I don't know. I'm just like a really down to earth type of dude. So
yeah,
I don't really know what to say.
No, you're fine. Yeah, because it just gave you thicker skin. You were like, all right. You might have read those first, 10 comments and been like, had your feelings hurt, but then, you kind of got over that and you're like, okay, well, I can't take these comments seriously, or I can't like let it affect me. I just need to, like you said, I just need to do me.
Yeah, dude, I was literally a despised icon, word for word.
That's incredible. Yeah, you're the focal point of the hate. You're like, who is this guy? Who does he think he is?
But I don't know. Then I started developing that just started seeing things in a sense that, to all the people out there that actually enjoy talking shit, I'm all about freedom of expression, freedom of speech and all that. It's all good. But if you really hate somebody to a point where you have to talk shit on him all the time, or, often, to say the least, if you're that good, man, just shut up. Otherwise, you're just making your scapegoats even bigger. You're by promoting them, by starting all these debates on like, this guy has a flat bill hat, he can't be death metal. And then
yeah,
man, it's not about what you wear, it's about what you feel. And then there's all these debates and everything, man. It's so funny. But like, bottom line, if kids are that good, man, just start a band of your own and show me how good you are, and then we'll see who laughs last. But I don't know.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, because you want to turn it around because you're a positive person, and it's like you don't want to dwell in negativity. And it's like, hey, if you're so negative, why don't you actually do something about it and change it? If you think what I'm doing is wrong, show the world what is right in your opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can't be everybody's friend. You can't please everyone. So I've just made peace with that, and it's all good. Wait, let me pause for a second. Once in a while, I switch into French mode, and I don't know how to say things.
I know. How does that?
I just now I just wish good on people. I sound really peace and love and hippie like right now, but I wish everyone the best, whether you like what I do or not.
Yeah.
This world, there's way too much serious shit in this world right now to contribute to that hate. So I'm doing the whole PMA thing, and it's doing me right. So that's pretty much it, man.
Yeah, no, that's how it works. Like I said, you're a positive person, and it's like you don't wish negative things on people, and I totally get that.
No, of course not.
It's really funny how you're just saying your mind switched into a friend. Like, so does that often happen to you, where it's just like you're in the middle of like an English sentence, and all of a sudden you just start to speak French?
Once in a while, it's just like to be fully bilingual, I guess you gotta sort of just let the words come out of your mouth without necessarily thinking about them, like as if you're speaking your native language. Otherwise, you're always pausing to wait. I want to say this, and you're always pausing to say these words in French and then translating them in English and saying them and everything. It's just so once in a while there's like this awkward pose. But with all this, touring and with all these friends that are actually Anglophones and all that, I'm getting better and better. I'm still learning to this date. And once in a while, I'll say something really goofy or clumsy, and one of my friends or my girlfriend or whatever, they'll just correct me, and that's how you learn.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, it's just funny because it's something that I personally don't deal with, and so it's like, oh yeah, that's true. You have to kind of just throw it out there, because if you think about it, then you're just going to be speaking so slow.
But sounds a little lame, but I'd like to thank American television for years and years of English lessons at home.
What were the shaping programs for you that kind of helped you learn English?
Oh, my dad. You're a kid. You watch TV with your parents. My dad always switched it on to English channel, so you sort of learn it subliminally.
Yep.
And I don't know, just watching Saturday mornings when I was a kid, or just I don't know. I'm looking at my DVD library right now. So Top Gun, Karate Kid, Batman, Beetlejuice.
That's incredible.
I don't know, the movies from the late 80s, early 90s, late 80s, I'd say. Mm-hmm. I would just watch them over and over again. I would fast forward to that ending fight scene in Karate Kid 1 and just watch it and watch it and watch it. And so I guess just movies and television in general helped me out quite a lot to learn English in a French-speaking world.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Kind of transitioning into obviously what you're doing now and what you're most excited about as far as the Obey the Brave stuff. Like honestly, when I first heard it and when I saw that you're involved and you're doing everything, I was really genuinely happy for you, because it's like anytime you do see friends starting up something new, there's always that first fear of like, oh man, I hope this doesn't suck, because, because it's especially if you did enjoy their previous musical endeavor, where you're like, oh yeah, like I liked what you did with your first band. And then why does your second band suck? You know, it's like, because I mean, it just happens that sometimes, you know, people want to do something really different musically, and then they do a second band and it's like, oh yeah, just not that good. But so I remember listening to it and it was just like, oh, way to go, Alex. Like, you've definitely hit the nail on the head. And it's just, it also made me happy too, because it seems that the approach for the band, like you said, you obviously all those years in, you know, Despised, Icon, Raxus, everything kind of led up to this, where it's like, all right, I know what to do now in order to make sure that this band is, you know, to the best of my ability, successful. And so did you kind of like, was that the focus where it's like, all right, you know, we're starting this band, here's some of my friends, like this will be fun, but you know, here's what we can do to make it more successful. You know, I guess for lack of a better term, quicker.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, I really wanted to get back into the game and just start the whole band thing all over again. And, you know, you learn from your success, but you learn mostly from your failures, and nobody wants to make the same mistakes twice. So just the culmination of all that just helped me out big time when the time came to form Obey the Brave. So instead of just announcing the band right away and not having any material or just taking baby steps or whatever, we decided to just pace ourselves and spent most of the last year just exchanging ideas, building the band. As you said, bottom line, we are friends, you know, doing music for the pure love of it and for the right reasons and all that. And it was just really easy to sink into that whole mindset of doing Obey the Brave. And so we just really took our time on this. And at some point, you know, 3 of us are from Ottawa, 2 of us are from Montreal. So we were mostly just exchanging ideas and riffs and through email and Facebook and text messages. And we really didn't hang out all that much last year until summertime came. And then I would say maybe, I don't know, July, August, that's when we decided to, all right, let's do this. We have enough songs. And then something that not a lot of people know, but August of last year, that's when we actually hit the studio and recorded our full length with Antoine from Ion Dissonance, longtime friend. And then once we actually had that record in hand, which was a really, you know, organic process in a sense that here we were, everything DIY, everything self-financed, no deadlines. We didn't even have a band name yet. We didn't know where we were heading. But hey, all of a sudden we have this record. It's the fall. We were like, all right, let's try this out. Let's do this. So that brings us to September, October, or maybe even November of last year. And then we were like, all right, let's do this. And so I got a jam space in Montreal, and then the boys started coming out every weekend or so, just started jamming all day, rediscovered that whole, you know, vibe of being with a couple of friends, having a couple of brews, just talking, chatting all day, jamming. Not so much that professional mindset where you're just there to jam your set and then you're out half an hour later because you're rushed or whatever. Like, I don't know. I just really back to the roots. And then we're like, hey, we really dig this. We like hanging out. We like jamming. We like playing music. We have this record. Let's shoot a music video. So I hit up one of my friends, Jesse, also from Montreal, shot a video in December. It was ready, you know, we took our time on that one as well. It was ready mid-January, and then once we had that, we were like, all right, let's do this. And that's when we announced the band. And granted, like not even a week earlier, we still didn't have a band name. We were called Youngblood for a couple of months or so, and then so many entities are, you know, going around with that name. So we decided to choose Obey the Brave, announced the band literally like a few days later, and then I don't know. Everything else happened. Everything else is history. And like you said earlier, just to make my point, there was that apprehension of, you know, breaking the ice properly. And like, oh man, what if nobody likes this, you know?
Yeah.
Am I going to make a fool of myself? Am I going to embarrass the Despised Icon legacy or whatever you want to call it? And then, whoopsies. And then, no, I guess I was pleasantly surprised with everyone's reaction and support, you know. Here we were, new band, no publicist, no record label, no management, no booking, no nothing, just doing everything ourselves and having, the support from, a lot of kids online, which really helped us spread the word. So definitely very thankful for that. I really feel fortunate to have people out there that support what I do and support what we do. And here we are 6 months later, almost to the day. Our record comes out in a month, and I'm extremely anxious to share this music with everyone. These past 6 months have been rock and roll. I quit my job for this. I've been working at it every day. I'm fortunate enough to manage this band now with Carl Severson, who is a role model. He did Ferret, it's fucking Carl, man. Hot Carl. We call him Hot Carl.
That's pretty good. I like that.
But I feel very fortunate to learn from the best, and thanks to Carl and thanks to my contacts as well, we managed to get Obey the Brave on the road, and here we are, booked by the best agents around, and we are on Epitaph Records, which I said earlier when you and I just started talking. I grew up listening to the early Epitaph records, whether it's like Rancid or Pennywise, like I was saying, or even Melancholy and all that good stuff. So to actually be on Epitaph is, wow, it blows my mind. It blows my mind.
No,
like
totally.
teenager, if mature Alex or grown up Alex were to meet teenager Alex, Alex would never believe what grown up Alex has to say. Like, it's
yeah, you'd be like,
sorry,
if I could put
I'm hungry, so I'm saying whatever, but
no, you're fine. If you could put this in a time capsule, you'd be like, oh no, your younger self would be like, what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, man, it's like, wow, man, we're at Avocado booking, Pantheon agency group, booking through all those entities for worldwide, and here we are with Epitaph and even Distort in Canada. Distort rule, and they're like really a family label. They treat us as family. I love it. Same for Epitaph. It's cool to be on top of your shit and be business and everything, but when you see the people actually care and treat you like a friend and family, then you know that you're really into good hands. So I couldn't be happier with my life right now.
Yeah, dude. Well, I'm honestly stoked for you. And sort of to wrap things up in conclusion, this is just more of a question in regards to, because like I said, I'm really interested in Montreal, and I always found it such an interesting city. Every time I played there, the shows were always incredible, but it was always funny because the people in the scene were always like, oh yeah, some Montreal people, have a negative opinion of Americans, or like, you walk into a store, like if I were to walk into a store and start to speak English, they would know how to speak English, but they would choose not to in order to, just get me out of there.
Yeah.
So is that true, or does that exist with some people where it's just like, oh yeah, you speak French or die kind of thing?
Well, unfortunately, in Quebec, it's even worse, because Quebec is like French minority of Canada, and right here in Quebec, often what the case is, like, they even hate the rest of Canada. A lot of people here want to separate from the rest of Canada. I'm proud to be Québécois. I'm proud to be Canadian. I have a lot of French-speaking friends, a lot of English-speaking friends. I really don't understand what the big fuss is all about. Obviously, some people are concerned with just losing the whole Quebec culture or that francophone heritage and all that, which is understandable. But there's a lot of laws in place right now to preserve though. I don't really know what to say in regards to that.
Yeah, no, I just want to.
And then when it comes to. So there's that, like you said earlier, Montreal is bilingual, almost 50-50. But as soon as you step out of the big city, which is Montreal, and you're, I don't know, an hour in whatever direction or further, then that's when you're in French land, and people don't understand English as well, or they just, that movie Team America, World Police?
Of course.
Like, America, fuck yeah, here we come to save the day, yeah, or something like that. Some people think that they take that image to the letter or whatever. I don't know. Some people have a negative view of Americans. I love touring the U.S. I can't wait to be back there. I'll be spending a month in the U.S. or even more, like 5 weeks starting tomorrow. So I'm excited, but I don't know, man.
Yeah, no, like I said, I just wanted to ask because it's like, I didn't personally experience that, but I've heard other people that talk about that, and yeah, like you said, Quebec is much worse, but yeah, so.
But I mean, it's not like it generalizes to the entire population.
Right.
A lot of people are just like me; they don't give a fuck.
Right.
But I guess it's like that. It's like that everywhere, man. I've been to the U.S. and I'd see like that flag from the South, and it'd say like "Speak English or Die" like on a bumper sticker. It's like that everywhere.
It's very true. Yeah.
And maybe this duality, this whole like debate that's going on between French and English, or Quebec versus U.S. or Canada versus U.S. That might be the same thing that's going on in like the southern part of the U.S. with Southern America and all that, and like the Spanish and English, and I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Peace and love, everybody. Peace.
No, totally. It's not specific to your country or to your region, because we in America definitely have that as well. But yeah, so honestly, I really appreciate you fitting this random interview in before you left for tour, and I'll let you go. I'll let you go have your dinner.